Is Apple's walled garden finally crumbling? On our podcast show this week, we're going to talk about some of the upcoming DOJ issues that they're being sued about in a epic but country versus corporation lawsuit that is brings back some memories of Microsoft being sued about Netscape Navigator and their monopolistic practices. Now, if you don't recall, Microsoft was sued by the DOJ for using monopolistic practices to put Internet Explorer, of all things, ahead of some of its competitors like Firefox and especially Netscape Navigator at the time. This is many years back. Basically, what they did is they made Internet Explorer so integrated that Netscape Navigator couldn't function properly. All the tools, all the fun stuff that you were used to be able to use Netscape Navigator would go away. So there was no alternative to Internet Explorer, right? This type of monopolistic practice is obviously not something that people want because that hinders choice, right? And monopolies are not about choice. Monopolies are about one singular product, and you can't escape. And for a lot of people, when you have your Apple device, it's pretty clear that if you want to escape from Apple, you really can't.
You can't.
And there are a number of reasons why. And we're going to discuss the reasons why the DOJ has brought these up in their big, huge
lawsuit.
Like, oh my God, like this is the government going after $1 trillion company, right?
Yeah,
one of the first companies to hit the $1 trillion
I think
valuation.
they're almost 2 trillion now, I think.
Which is incredible. Like
Crazy.
They have 100 times the GDP of some countries out there.
Oh yeah.
It's mesmerizing. They're so big that they have your hands in pretty much everything and in pretty much everyone's life. And to escape them is actually very difficult. And that's part of the reason why the DOJ is looking into an antitrust lawsuit citing the monopolistic practices of Apple. Okay? So we're going to cover these 5 main points. And but before that, we should probably talk about some of the losses for Apple so far that may have spurred the DOJ to look further.
And losses as in like they lost
legal
money?
losses, right?
Okay.
Let's talk about one of the ones that probably put Apple on the radar, which is the oxygen sensor inside the Apple Watches.
That's right. Yeah.
Last year, Apple was forced around Christmas time to take all of their Apple Watches off the shelves.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the reason why is because another US company, Massimo, has patents that utilize the oxygen sensor in such a way that Apple is also using the same method. Now, Massimo went to Apple a long time ago. I think a couple of years earlier. They have documented meetings with Apple that this is the technology that they want to either license or co-develop with Apple to put into Apple Watches, right? And this company's main focus is healthcare and this particular technology. That's not coincidence.
Yeah.
So they took the technology and just stuck it in the watch and told nobody.
They do. Right. There's a lot of things that they've done and it's just not really. Yeah, it's not good.
Well, when an American company sues an American company, the DOJ is a little bit more. They're a little bit more. How should I say, vigilant in looking at the facts and everything and looking at what's happening, right?
Yeah.
They because Massimo got a couple of different agencies involved, it got on the radar. So I think this was probably the pivotal moment where Apple really messed up.
I mean, they
really messed up.
I mean, Apple have done a lot of things. For example,
they've done a lot of things. But this is probably the most. When you sue an American company on American soil, things have there's a sequence of events to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And I think this set things off because Apple lost.
A snowball effect.
Right. So if we look at some of the lawsuits recently, I mean, look at this one. In San Francisco, some guy had an iPhone 12.
Yeah.
And Apple refused to fix it under warranty, legitimately Didn't want to fix it in the warranty.
Okay.
The guy sued Apple and got it for, just to make a point, for the full value of the iPhone 12. That's all he wanted. I know that this is, to do the lawsuit, it's probably more money than that. But he did it just to prove a point because Apple is being somewhat dicks about things, right?
Yeah.
And overseas, Apple had a huge loss against the European government for Spotify and other music services because they wouldn't allow them to advertise sales against Apple Music.
Yeah, and there was another one there with Epic Games.
Epic Games as well too. Apple's policies and procedures for apps and everything, and the 30% cut, 15 to 30% now, came to light, and everything was laid bare. That's why Apple doesn't like Epic, and they're being malicious against them in many, many ways. But that was Epic did poke the bear.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if Epic wants to make extra revenue through in-game purchases, that's part of their thing, right? But for Apple to come in and say, no, that's still under our so-called terms and conditions where we take a 30% cut. That's not even part of their game. You know, it's just, you know.
Right. So that whole thing doesn't seem very, very fair. I mean, yes, subscribe to the game, 30% cut, done. You referred the sale, you get that part of the sale. But in perpetuity?
It's
for everything?
Yeah, for everything, including in-game purchases.
Even stuff that they never,
like that.
Yeah, like that is what they, I think some fairness, some things needed to come to light for other people to kind of step up, right? Epic was the first casualty. Epic now can't get on the App Store anymore.
I think for in US, no. In Europe, it's still okay, I guess, at the moment.
And in Europe, they have this thing where if you want to add separate payment options, you have to jump through all these hoops to get it. And by the time you're done developing all these ways to
I think in Europe, they have a stricter antitrust, anti-competitor competitive kind of laws.
But Apple is using something which is a wholly passive-aggressive personality thing called malicious compliance. Okay. Basically, they're complying. Sure, yeah, you can do that. But we're going to make it so hard for you to do that, it's not even worth you trying.
Oh, God.
Right? Yes, it was legislated into place, but they're not playing. They're not budging. Not like with USB-C, where they basically had to roll over. Right? USB-C is a good thing for everyone. Now you have one cable for pretty much everything. Non-proprietary things are good. So, and then finally, in the US, I don't know if you heard about this, but Tim Cook was actually sued. Tim Cook
himself
and Apple were sued because Tim Cook did not disclose the fact that Apple's sales of iPhones are going down.
Oh, right.
China.
Okay. So normally in like a quarterly profit report, whatever, they need to inform
good and bad.
Yeah, the sales are down, whatever. But if he didn't mention it, that's withholding information.
He didn't tell anyone because that dictates the stock performance and also whether or not people should purchase or not purchase or hold or sell.
Yeah, so it's withholding information. Which
they definitely withhold that information.
Yeah,
so that people would hang on to their stock because if everything was fine, I'm going to keep buying. But Apple's stock on that day actually took a tumble of 4%, and they've been down over double digits since their high.
Yeah, for the last 6 months they've gone down, or even more. So
let's get back to the topic, which is the DOJ now has an antitrust suit against Apple over their iPhone ecosystem. iOS is on trial.
Okay.
The walled garden of iOS. We haven't, I don't know if they're going to open this up to other ecosystems like MacBooks and Macs, but the precedents set by this case will have ramifications for Apple.
It will, yeah, because originally iOS was the kind of...
well, macOS was first.
macOS.
Then iOS, then iPadOS.
Yeah.
Then now VisionOS.
But iOS was the jewel that actually made them
the money.
Yeah.
It funds basically everything. It's gotten so big that, again, the spirit of this antitrust lawsuit is the fact that there is no longer a competitive, switchable nature if you enter the iOS ecosystem. If you enter the iOS ecosystem, you put all your information there, you cannot get it out easily to other things. There's no switching to Android. It's easy to switch Android to iOS, but even pulling things out of iOS is almost impossible. You have an iPhone.
Yeah.
How easy is it to get stuff into an Android?
I don't want to even think about it, because at the moment I'm just, it's if I can't get the information out, then it's literally in the cloud. Okay. Right? That's the only way I can put stuff in the cloud, and then from the cloud I can kind of download it. But
what kind of watch do you have?
Well, I wanted to play around with the iWatch or Apple Watch.
Yep. How's that going?
Not great.
Okay. Can you use another watch with your iPhone?
No.
Why?
You can Bluetooth it, get some information, but it's not integrated. As in, a lot of the functions won't work properly.
So in other words, iOS is keeping any other device from being compatible and having the same great experience that you expect from that device, like you would with an Apple Watch.
The same idea as, remember, you have the Samsung phone, right?
Yep.
And you put an external hard drive in there.
Yep.
And that would load up straight away. You could record straight onto your SSD, right? You can't do that with an iPhone. There's no apps yet. And I think, like I said, I think one of the companies, Kingston, are working on with Apple to get that
certification.
Again, everything has to be Apple approved. Yep. If Apple doesn't approve it, then you're not gonna get that feature anymore, or get that.
So in other words, your options are limited for switching between hardware, software, and other devices.
They make it so difficult, so that Apple now, that you have to use their products and their services. There's no other way. And that's why people have to, once you're hooked onto Apple, you there's no escape. Yeah. Literally.
Just like there was no escape when Microsoft made Internet Explorer the fully integrated a web browser inside their operating system, killing, and I'm not even exaggerating, but they literally wanted to choke off Netscape Navigator. Those were some words that were used in that antitrust case.
Yeah.
And a certain phrase that Tim Cook used when he was asked about this at one of the press conferences is that one of the reporters said something to the extent that my mom, when I send her videos, it doesn't look right when I send it to her on her Android device. Will you guys be making that better for non-iOS users? And Tim Cook very, very publicly said, and he doesn't even take this back, is the fact that, well, you should buy your mom an iPhone.
Yeah, I think he did say that. Yeah, I remember
that. And that is being used against them in this case. That type of smugness.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't work on other devices, well, go and get yourself an iPhone.
Yeah.
Get yourself a MacBook, whatever. It's there's no other choice.
Okay, so let's get to the 5 points that the DOJ is allegedly Apple is using to illegally create this and maintain this monopoly, this mafioso, the mafioso, mafioso. So they are actively disrupting Superapps. Now these are apps that encompass many different programs, and could degrade iOS stickiness by making it easier for iPhone users to switch to competing devices. One of them is obviously Messenger.
You're talking about Facebook Messenger?
No, I'm talking about
the text message.
iMessaging, right?
iMessaging.
The bubbles, right?
Yeah.
That's a super app, right?
Right.
You can't. It doesn't work on any other platform, does it?
No. iMessage only works on iPhone.
And it was pointed out that the videos are crap when you send them to someone else using.
Yeah, and there was a story about people who are texting from Android phones to Apple phones, and the text bubbles are different colors.
They are. They've been segregated.
And that kind of entices or in kind of like encourages segregation, because people who are iPhone users and versus Android users, they will rather connect with iPhone users rather than Android users.
Yes, kind of and they're in dating apps as well too.
Dating apps as well.
Specifically, that even though you swipe the right direction and you started talking to this person, if those bubbles are not the right color, you struck out, because it's also associated with your level of status, your wealth, and maybe even your intelligence as well too. Right?
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
You're not an iPhone user.
Also, super apps can also mean some of the things that we talked about that we will be talking about in an upcoming episode, which are super apps. Now, super apps are those things where everything's mashed together, right? Like Weibo. Like in China, Weibo is the app that everyone runs on their phone 24/7.
Yeah.
They barely exit that app. So in a place like China, it doesn't matter what phone you use. It doesn't matter what phone you use. It's like that app will run on every single phone, regardless of hardware, because it's cloud-based, right?
Yeah.
So having an app like that means you can switch from Xiaomi to
because you
Huawei.
just run that super app because it does everything, right?
Here, if you have a super app that takes that needs a bunch of API access and everything like that, works on Android, does not work on iOS.
Oh. Okay.
Because those same hooks do not exist. One of the examples is fitness apps. There are ways around it, but my Garmin watch doesn't work nearly as well as it does on an Android.
Oh, right. So
because iOS blocks a lot of things.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right? Same as an Android watch doesn't work. Barely works on iOS.
Yeah.
So there's no switching.
That's right. You can't
iOS.
use an Apple Watch on a Samsung phone.
You can use it, but you lose a lot of functionality because it's locked out.
Yeah, that's right.
It's locked out. It's not that you can't. It's just that Apple doesn't want to talk to anyone. But my Garmin works on any brand of Android device, all the way from my Google devices to everything. It's even more portable because everything's synced up.
It's because Android is an open source.
It's open platform.
Yeah.
It's used on hundreds of brands of phones, OnePlus, Samsung, Xiaomi, LG, formerly LG. All these brands can use that operating system to make a better experience. The difference is usually just the hardware and some of the skins and everything like that.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, you have the choice to switch from brand to brand to brand to brand, depending on your experience. Now, Google phones have a different experience than Samsung phones. I like both experiences, but I prefer to use Samsung when I'm using Samsung Buds or whatever, but I can still switch to Google. No problem. Right?
Yeah. When you get an iPhone, that's it. You only have one choice.
You have
and that's
one
an
choice.
iPhone, right?
You can't get away.
With an Android, I've seen you've seen those Transformer versions, the Bumblebee. That's really nice, right?
So cool.
And then you have different versions, like you said, the foldable phones from Samsung, and you have loads of choice with Android phones. Whereas an iPhone, you use only one iPhone.
Yeah.
That's it.
So basically, that is that when you have apps that. And it's not really super apps. It's literally just apps that have access. You don't have access to nearly as many things as you can to have a great experience, right? Apple keeps that pretty close to themselves. I feel like I'm talking about this as deja vu, but literally, you can't, if you want iMessaging, you have to be on an Apple. Otherwise, you get ousted by the entire community of people that use iOS devices.
Here you go. If I give you this iPhone right now to use, would you switch over to iPhone?
No, because I can't use my Garmin watch the way that I want to use it, right? My Garmin works really, really well.
See, he doesn't even need or want one.
See, here's the thing. I have a Garmin watch. I was using a Samsung watch, but because I'm on a Samsung phone, even Samsung lets me switch to a Garmin. And I like the experience. The experience is great. For fitness and whatnot, unprecedented. But I can also switch back to a Samsung watch or a Pixel watch.
Right.
Even the Pixel watch works properly on my phone.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah,
right?
you have choices. Whereas the iOS and Apple ecosystem, no, you can't.
Yep. So there you go. So iOS's stickiness is based on the control of super apps. Super apps with multiple access to different areas that the other apps need access to in order to work with hardware and software that is not from the brand. Let's talk about the next point. Blocking cloud streaming services.
Cloud streaming services
like video games that would lower the need for more expensive hardware. So we know that cloud gaming works really well on Chromebooks.
Right.
Okay. Even if you have a cheap Chromebook.
That's Chrome OS.
Chrome OS.
Okay.
You can have NVIDIA GeForce. You can have
the
Stadia when it was still around.
GeForce Now, right?
You can have Luna. You can still play games on it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Xbox to a certain extent.
Yeah. The Xbox Live,
Xbox Live, all works.
Okay.
Right? So it doesn't matter if you have a Chromebook, a PC, or a desktop.
Cloud gaming.
You can still use cloud gaming as a fundamental kind of bridging gap. If you all you cared about was just to play games on a device, and you can get the same or similar experience from any platform.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as it's got the Chrome OS, Chromebook. Yep.
Apple blocks the experience. Apple makes it worse.
Yeah, I haven't seen it work well.
It doesn't work well. If you could play, like GeForce Now games on an iPad with 2 controllers paired up to it, wouldn't that be fun?
That would be good.
But it's not possible. Not low latency, not video. Everything is just dumbed down. You can watch Apple TV, no problem. You can play Apple games, no problem. But other alternatives are crap.
Apple Arcade, they call it, right?
Apple Arcade, right?
Yeah, I've seen that.
So those experiences are completely neutered, right? They are not the same experience that you can get from even cheaper hardware, right? And the emphasis on having powerful hardware, you need to upgrade to this particular iPad to get that experience, blah, blah, blah. Technically, cloud games are in the browser.
It is in the browser.
Right? It's a browser. It's streaming from the web through a browser, right? That's all it is. But to make you upgrade hardware to get frames per second, to have the latest Apple silicon, that is the second thing that the DOJ is kind of upset about.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be, limited to having, for example, if you want to do cloud gaming, you should be able to just log in to whatever, access you have, whether it's GeForce Now, Xbox Live, whatever, to play. For having, Apple to kind of like dim down your experience and getting that kind of like really crappy experience.
I think so. I mean, they're still making 30% off my subscription. Why are they so upset? Why are they mad? It all comes down to, again, monopolistic practices to keep you on their platform and their services.
And they want to push Apple Arcade rather than other gaming.
Of course they do.
Cloud gaming services.
All right. We talked about this briefly, but the third point is that they are suppressing the quality of messaging between iPhone and Android devices, or any devices for that matter. If it's not an iOS device, you get a different colored bubble and you get a diminished experience.
Yeah, there's certain, for example, certain emojis or video quality videos and pictures, they don't come through properly sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes you send me some stuff coming through. You got Android, right? Yeah. You send me the text. It's just not the same experience.
No. And you know what's funny? Android devices, the messaging app, it doesn't matter if you're using the Samsung or even the Google one, they've enhanced the service for Apple users. Like when you send me stuff, when you hit like or heart something or whatever, it actually gets very colorful on my phone. I actually have quite a good experience when interacting with iOS users.
Yeah, I sometimes send stuff to you, whether it's more than text, I mean, pictures or a video.
It's just fine.
For me, from an iOS for iPhone users, it sometimes says cannot send, fail to send. I don't know why.
When it
text is fine. Text is fine.
When it does send right, when those emojis come up and everything, I have a fine experience. It's like I'm talking to anyone else.
But if I send the same media, video, photo, whatever to an iPhone user, no problem.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Of course it does. And also, iMessaging is missing RCS. It's missing the security of RCS. It doesn't have it.
Right.
Doesn't have it. It's using SMS.
It's using SMS, yeah. Right? That's right, yeah.
So my conversations are secure. With Android users, my conversations may or may not be secure with iPhone users, even though the app has actually increased in recent years. I've noticed is that even if you use your iPhone, when you're sending me iPhone stuff, or when my agent is sending me iPhone stuff, I see everything seems happy to me. Like there's animations, there's stuff happening on the screen. It seems okay, right? Versus when an iPhone user interacts with any other person, it's kind of bland. It's kind of like, It's like, what's going on here? It's not the same experience.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's like an iPhone looks on those people as lower class citizens.
But their platform itself ain't that high end either.
Yeah. So awesome experience with iPhone to iPhone, negative, look down from above experience with anyone else on an Android device. Even though Android devices have propped up Apple devices to the same level as all Android devices. iPhone stuff looks fine. Apple stuff looks the same to me. Like if you're messaging me on an iPhone device, I may not even know. And I think that's great. So no segregation. Everyone's the same on messaging.
On Android.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We talked about this briefly. This was also, and it's also one of the listed things. They are limiting the functionality of third-party smartwatches with its iPhones and making it harder for Apple Watch users to switch from the iPhone due to compatibility issues. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get an iPhone, Apple Watch, you can only pair it to an iOS or Apple device. You can't connect it up to an Android properly. It just doesn't work as well. And
so you can't change your phone out and take your Apple Watch with you. You have to change both.
No, because you have to download the Apple Watch OS apps onto the Apple Watch.
Oh, you know what? I heard about this. You have to actually activate your watch on an iPhone to be able to use it.
But also, if you need to download the apps onto your Apple Watch, you have to use Apple Watch OS apps.
Oh no! So nothing works.
No, it doesn't work because then Android doesn't have a Watch OS app store.
No, it doesn't.
So how can I if I have an Android phone, how am I supposed to upload Apple Watch OS apps onto my Apple Watch?
You know what's funny is that I've seen the Pixel Watch has its store. The Samsung store has a watch section, and even TicWatch, one of these third-party kind of Chinese-made watches, it has its app store as well too. They all have their own app stores. I have the same exact experience as any other device on Android, on any Android device, but I can't bring an Apple Watch over to here and have the same experience.
No, you don't. You can't. You can't upload the apps onto the app.
So I'm tied to the app iOS. I'm tied to one of their smartphones for if I want to have an Apple Watch. Period.
Yeah.
And that's one of the major complaints. So there are a lot of compatibility issues. You have an Apple Watch,
Yeah, I don't even wear it.
There you go.
It's so limiting. It's just like...
Okay. And the third one, the fifth one, the final one, is they block third-party developers from creating competing digital wallets with tap-to-pay functionality on the iPhone. True.
You only have Apple Wallet thing, right? That's it. You can't use any other. There isn't any other.
Yeah.
You have to use Apple's own wallet.
On my Samsung, I use mainly Google Wallet, but I also have Samsung Wallet as well too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You have Samsung Wallet, Google Wallet. You can have any other wallets in there. Here, Apple Wallet only.
Yeah.
And if your app doesn't support that, then you won't have that payment.
So if you have a card that has NFC on it, normally it would have to be compatible with Apple's wallet in order for it to even be compatible.
Yes, you have to. Okay. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Same with the watch.
Watch as well. Yeah.
So everything is tied.
Yeah.
See, I have my choice between Google and Samsung Wallet. It doesn't matter. Or I can use the native NFC inside even inside American Express has their own. I can use just American Express.
Okay.
So
yeah, you're tied. You can only use Apple Wallet.
Yeah, because sometimes I just want my American Express on my watch. I don't want anything else accessible. That's when I would use it when I'm out and about. That's all I would use. Yeah. I can't do that.
Once it's in the wallet, you have a choice to select whatever payment you want. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you have a specific app that uses a wallet, right? You can't use it. You have to use Apple's wallet, and your app or your payment device have to be compatible or allow or Apple approve. So then you can add it to the wallet.
Okay. So the same example there. I have an American Express app. My American Express app can act as an NFC card specifically for my watch. I can download the app and have it just be an American Express watch without any wallets. I can do that on this watch. I cannot do that on an Apple Watch because it has to be compatible with their wallet, or I've had to add it. Yeah. And so I always have to open the wallet before I can use that service. Yeah. That's what the final and fifth point, major point. There's other things as well too, but these are the main things that the DOJ in this antitrust lawsuit is going after Apple on. So, as consumers, which of these things do you think Apple is justified in being upset and saying that this lawsuit is wrong about the facts and the law, or do you think this is justified?
I think Apple is really stand on their ground because iOS is so closed that again versus an Android, which is open source, right? Open Android OS and stuff like that. iOS is so closed that if you want to be in, you have to accept what we give you and what we provide you, and the do's and don'ts and the terms and conditions. Otherwise, we don't have to be in our iOS ecosystem.
Okay,
that's what they're saying. It's proprietary. It's their own. So if you want to come in, then sign up, agree. Otherwise, you're not going to be on iOS. Is that fair? I don't know.
Well, this is about monopolistic practices. This is an antitrust lawsuit. Does it satisfy monopolistic tendencies or a monopoly? Like, does it satisfy it?
Yeah, but if they're forcing this iOS so-called agreement and you're not allowing free development of apps, then of course it's very anti-competitive, because then you're actually restricting developers. You can't create the stuff that make your app or your brand or whatever work properly without agreeing to their terms. It's very restrictive, and also it makes users that if I wanted a certain feature or a certain app that works well on Android but doesn't work on iOS, it just limits my options. And also, once you're in the iOS ecosystem, it's very hard to get out because everything's so tied and locked in that you don't have a choice to come out of it.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
So maybe
as a user.
So maybe at worst monopolistic tendencies, but at best maybe anti-competitive.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, I hate being on Apple's side, but you kind of did this to yourself when you signed up and bought an iOS device, right? You made the choice to enter it, and you kind of knew that you're kind of stuck in here, right? Because Apple is being Apple. It's called the walled garden for a reason, because everything outside is, according to them, crap. Everything inside is like people playing harps and angels and stuff like that. Walled garden, right? So when you leave the walled garden after enjoying all this stuff on the inside, see ya.
Yeah.
Right.
It's almost like a cult, because there are technologies on your Samsung phone, right? And Android OS, which are like 3-4 years ahead of Apple. Mm-hmm. Yet Apple's phone for the last 3-4 series, like from iPhone 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, it's been the same. There's no advanced any features that could say, hey, this is so advanced, better than any other phone. They got a newer chip in there, a little slightly faster, blah, blah, blah. But then there's no innovation. And with that, if you're an iPhone user, you're locked in. I've been getting the same crappy technology for the last 4 or 5 years, whereas Android OS has advanced already 3-4 years in advance. So, if I wanted a flip phone, then I can't get one because I'm locked in Apple. Whereas you guys, Samsung, already had a flip phone like 3 years ago.
Yeah, right. I hate to do this. I hate to argue for Apple, but technically speaking, you could just leave and just leave everything behind. Can you not? Can you not burn the bridge and scorch everything and just leave?
I can't. And it's because everything is so tied in. My payment system, my everything, the banking, everything is so locked in there that I can't really. I mean, of course, you have the same banking apps for Android OS and stuff like that. But the reason why I've gone into Apple is one of the reasons is because so-called the Apple iOS ecosystem is so secure.
Okay.
Right. That it's for the last, say, 6-7 years, it's literally, I won't say unhackable, but one of the things I like about iOS and Apple phones, iPhones, is because, with the loss of, say, Find My iPhone, is that if you have to have it checked or unchecked, I can't remember which, you have to uncheck it. If you have it checked, Find My iPhone, is that even if you lose your phone, you won't be able to unlock it at all. Even if you find my phone and it's wiped and everything, you still cannot use it because it's just locked in to my account, which I haven't ticked Find My iPhone unchecked, right? So for security-wise, it is one of the, I won't say best features, but one of the most attractive features that I like about the iPhone is that it's pretty secure.
Okay. I can find my phone with my Android as well too. Actually, I can do it. Yeah. Do it with the Find My Phone. I can use any app. I can use Samsung, or I can use Find My Mobile.
If it's, for example, if it's lost and someone finds it, wipes it, can they use it? Can they put their own?
I think Samsung's made it very difficult.
Whereas before, So a few years, maybe a couple of 4 or 5 years ago, people were able to find lost phones from Android OS. They're able to wipe it. And they'll just be able to use it because they just put an iOS on top of it, a clean one, and then log in with whatever, then they can use the phone. With an iPhone, you can't. Even if you wipe it, even if you wipe the BIOS, update it.
I think that's still a Samsung thing potentially. I haven't gotten to the point where my phone's been lost and I have to do that, but I can lock the phone. I don't know if it's like it's. Yeah, I don't know.
I think for security wise, Apple does have a point. Something an advantage for that.
So arguing for them, the locked-inness of the ecosystem does have some security advantages because everything is theirs.
Yeah,
and also at the same time, all of that glory is for them to get. But at the same time, though, if anything goes wrong, they also have to own that as well too.
Yeah, and when you buy an iPhone, they always encourage you. Highly recommend and encourage you to buy the insurance,
the
AppleCare, which is like 2 years, and it costs you like $200-$300. And the reason why is because they don't repair phones.
No,
they take it in if it's damaged, and they'll say, come back tomorrow, whatever. But they'll give you a refurbished old stock from their,
They just basically transferred everything from your phone to that phone.
Yeah. So it's they don't repair it. They give you a replacement phone. That's it. Okay. So that's maybe it's a good thing, but without that AppleCare, if you only purchase outright, you get 1 year guarantee anyway. But if anything damages, you have to pay for everything.
Yeah. And
in fact, because they don't repair it, you have to buy a new phone.
And keep in mind, the word guarantee and warranty are not the same things. A warranty only covers manufacturer defects. A guarantee may have other things above it, but nobody in North America guarantees anything.
Yeah.
The only thing that you have is an extended warranty or extended coverage. Coverage, of course, means that drops, spills, and everything, there are conditions against that. The guarantee is a very strong word that is in favor of the consumer. But no one in North America uses the guarantee word because there is no favor to the consumer in most cases. And in this case, if you want better service and coverage, you have to buy the AppleCare.
How much is the Samsung Care?
For my phone?
Yeah.
I think it was like $100.
Oh, yeah. You're paying over 200 plus on the Apple.
Yeah. It depends though, right? It covers certain things. You can buy different versions of it.
Yeah.
One that even includes theft in the US. So there is... I don't think Apple covers that.
Hold on. See, they can do it with earbuds. So they have the Apple AirPods, right?
Yep.
They work great. I love them. And they have other Bluetooth earbuds, things from Sennheiser, Bose.
Yep.
Bluetooth connecting to the iPhone works great. So why can't they do that for other devices, like other watches and other devices? Yeah.
So I think that might be one of the arguments. Why can't you? is there a reason why the Apple Watch is so locked in like this?
I have no idea.
You know, I mean, you do it for other things. Like they own Beats.
Beats, yeah, Beats.
That's an Apple company. They bought it from Dr. Dre.
Yeah, from Dr. Dre, yeah.
Right, so they own that. Has a great experience. You can use other Bluetooth headphones with it.
Yeah,
but they don't sound as good. They don't have the Apple codec.
They don't.
Whereas if it has LDAC or AAC or one of the other derivatives, any Qualcomm phone,
right,
which is most of them, will be able to use the higher Bluetooth rate.
Yeah.
So there like Sennheiser, like all the other brands can do that.
Oh,
right. Samsung has their Samsung codec if you use their Samsung buds, but even so, you can still get a higher rate of Bluetooth for audio and latency.
Yeah, the Apple is so focused on having their own proprietary. I mean, what's the video codec that they have? Is it called? It's QuickTime.
It's QuickTime.
Yeah, and then QuickTime videos work great on Apple. They look great.
Yeah, but QuickTime and ProRes are Apple things, right?
Yeah.
So, should this antitrust lawsuit proceed? Is there enough to prosecute Apple on? Will the DOJ actually win? And in what cases do you think that they're definitely going to lose?
Well, I want them to open up the iOS ecosystem for everyone to kind of develop, produce better products. Like I said, why do I have to use Apple's codec when I can't you can use the other codec, right? And have nicer headphones or nicer earbuds. I want to be able to use a Garmin watch, fully functional.
Yep.
Between iOS, for example, I might have an iOS phone which I use regularly, but I could have left that at home. And in work, I have an Android phone, right? So why can't I pair it with that and then work and pair it with the iPhone?
That's kind of a pain in the butt.
You have that choice. You have the option, right? Yeah. So I want them to open up. If they open up in that kind of sense, then if that lawsuit makes them to open up, then great. If it doesn't, they'll just get fined and they'll just get back to the old ways.
So in terms of the consumer, because this is all about the consumer, right? This is all about the fact that there's been little lawsuits that people have been winning against Apple because they simply, like the guy that sued for just the price of the iPhone 12 that he bought for $1,300. Like that's just, wow. And then he won that, right? And the fact that they've been going like USB-C, wow, they had to fight for that. And the fact that they won't, even if Spotify's on sale, wow, Apple suppresses those deals in their app so that people can't subscribe to them. Wow.
I mean, how USB-C came about was because the Europeans are very strict with all that kind of stuff, right? And they want them to open up the port, right? To have all phones, no matter what brand, Samsung, LG, even Apple, they have to use USB-C. Because it gives, it will reduce the waste.
Pro-consumer
waste, because you don't have to have a separate adapter or cable just because you have to use an iPhone Lightning cable, right?
I'm an Android. You can borrow mine.
Get rid of that, right? Exactly, USB-C. So, and they have to look at the market, right? So if, for example, US market is this size, 1/3 of the market, 1/3 of their revenue.
Yep.
Asia could be, I don't know, 50% revenue, whatever. Then depends on the European market, how big it is. Is it worth not selling their iPhones in Europe? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
If they invested in all those stores, right? And those Apple stores ain't cheap to invest. I mean, to develop and build and all that kind of stuff, because
that's a lot of money for real estate.
Because that's right. And if you look at most Apple stores, they have certain design, and all of the glass, the glass is sourced by one or two companies, but it's specific to their standard, to their requirement and specifications, and also their tables. Everything has to be that up to scratch, up to their standard. And if you invested in those stores, and you're not going to say, well, pack in, you won't sell your iPhones and stuff like in Europe. It doesn't make sense for them. You're basically cutting your foot, right?
Yeah.
So they have to abide by European law. It doesn't make sense to have two production lines for making iPhones Lightning cable in US and USB-C in Europe. That's Doesn't make any sense. You might as well just make iPhones all USB-C.
Okay.
Right?
So
yeah.
Do you think that this antitrust lawsuit will, and they've said some dishonorable things about other platforms in the past. Do you think that this will compel Apple to actually innovate and fight with honor based on their products? Because like you said, Apple's been a little bit, they haven't been innovating in the app space because they don't have to. So this is going to make them fight a little bit harder. That's a good thing, right?
Right. Yeah. They're going to have to look at whether to pay millions of dollars in fines or to not answer to all. Maybe there's say five requirements, right?
Yeah.
They may get, okay, we'll accept say 2 or 3.
Right. Which 2 or 3 do you think they're most likely going to relent on? I mean, let's just put it this way. A lot of people like Apple Watches because of the design and everything like that. If they relented and said, okay, fine, we're going to have an Android version of it, would that be a good thing for everyone? Would they sell more watches?
Yeah.
Basically?
So like you mentioned earlier, Massimo, right?
Yeah.
With the blood oxygen.
Yeah.
A fine, whatever, that they got sued. I think Apple Watch is giving them a headache in terms of all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I would think they would hopefully open up Apple Watch.
Because the Apple Watch has a lot of things going for it, from the ecosystem, the design and everything like that. I mean, if they just opened that up, they could actually give a really great third, fourth, fifth option in the marketplace where people are kind of fiddling with watches that are kind of, they're a lot of Android OS watches are kind of janky, except for the Samsung, the Pixel, and even the Pixel watch isn't that great because the battery life kind of sucks, right? Garmin, really great option, works mostly with Apple, but there's deficits, but works awesome in Android. But if the Apple Ultra was able to pair with a Samsung Ultra 24, I mean, nice. With a titanium, like that'd be pretty cool. I think a lot of people would go for that.
So for me, 2 things: Apple Watch, open up, and iOS or App Store, open up. Those are the 2 things I think, as a consumer, I would be happy with.
How about messaging specifically? Messaging was a primary issue with this.
Messaging. I think so. I think they need to upgrade, sort out their messaging. Because
right now, as an Android user, I'm happily messaging with iOS users. I don't know. I'm oblivious to the fact that you are getting a different image of me.
I'm not getting a good experience.
I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a great experience messaging with you.
I would send a couple of text photos or even short videos on the iMessage to an Android user. Sometimes it says fail to send.
So at bare minimum, too many ads. At bare minimum, what if we just made the experience more the continuity between the experience? What if we just worked on that?
They have to scrap the SMS and go with the...
So they would have to finally go to RCS.
They must have to, right?
Because they have to upgrade the security and everything.
Yeah.
And then...
But who owns RCS though?
RCS is an open standard. Doesn't matter.
Open standard, see? That's where they need to go. Open source, open standard. Okay. So that means the iOS, the App Store have to be open, and also the messaging and everything. Okay. And also the watch. Keeping everything proprietary, it only deters innovation, I think.
It also deters sales. I mean, guess how many watches they would have sold over Christmas if every person that bought a Samsung phone bought an Apple Watch instead of a Samsung watch? Those incremental sales are not small.
And also, they're a $2 trillion company. And come on. I mean, if Massimo came out and says, "Oh, you're interested in licensing whatever the oxygen thing for the Apple Watch?"
That was so petty of them to do.
I know. I mean, you just buy them out if you want.
Yeah,
you just buy them out. No problem.
The other thing too is that the fact that people own more than one watch. It doesn't matter if I like the Apple Watch. I could own 3 or 4 other watches because I just like them. Yeah. But the fact that I can have all of them paired to my Android device, and I can't do that with my Apple device, kind of sucks. I mean, everyone makes more money if these things are just a little bit more money. If every Android user bought an Apple Watch too, wouldn't that be cool for everyone? I think so. I think that's a great option.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean, that's how Apple works, and that's what I don't like about them.
All right.
Again, if they open up, I think that should be it. And hopefully this lawsuit will make them open up a little bit more. But they could turn around and says, well, okay, well, yeah, we're wrong. We'll pay you the millions in fines, and they'll just go back to their old ways.
Well, I think that Apple has said right out that they are going to vigorously defend this. And even some of the lawsuits that were just recently awarded, they were back in 2016, 2017. So it took almost 5 years for some of these lawsuits to resolve themselves.
Yeah.
And because this is the DOJ coming after Apple, this could take numbers of years, even maybe up to a decade to resolve. Even the Netscape Navigator thing took Microsoft and the DOJ many years until that was actually resolved and people were made whole again.
Just use Internet Explorer to download Chrome or Firefox.
Or Firefox. That's the best thing. Okay, well, this is a big lesson in openness to everyone. Apple, we do want you to open up. There's some really cool stuff that you do, and even Android users would want some of that, but we don't want to play in your walled garden. Why don't you just have a little toll road where you just pay a little bit to go back and forth between everything outside and everything inside in terms of openness? Just, put that olive branch out there. Okay. Well, that's everything that we have on, at least that's what we know right now with the Apple lawsuit. They haven't gone to trial yet. It's just been, the 88-page brief has just been announced and has been served to Apple. And I'm sure that both defense teams, offense and defense teams are working on their arguments. So until next week, we will have a brand new show on Wednesdays at noon. Every week. And hope to see you again soon. And if there are any comments or any concerns about this trial or anything that you think might that we've completely missed that you feel very strongly about, definitely leave it below. I know that talking about Apple is a very polarizing topic. Some people really love them in kind of a cultish way, but hey, we like you too.
Yeah.
Till next week. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.